District Board of Directors to order by the river. And we're going to start with roll call. Michelle Weber. Here. Pete Knox. Here. Lawrence Green.
Here.
Heather Murphy. Here. Gino Grimaldi.
Here.
Kelly Sutherland. Here. And Susan Cox present. Okay. We are going into executive session. And so the Lane Transit District Board of Directors will now enter executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2F, which allows the board to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Following the executive session, the board will reconvene in regular session. Designated staff and representatives of the news media may remain in the room. All other members of the public are asked to leave at this time. Before we begin, I'd like to remind any media present that reporting on the content of our discussions during this executive session is prohibited, except to note the general subject as previously stated. No decisions or votes may take place during executive session. Once we conclude, we will return to regular session. Is there a motion to formally athletic directors to share their updates. So. Susan, Metropolitan Policy Committee, they've been sort of on summer hiatus.
It's been canceled the last 5 months.
Right. And Heather Lane, Area Commission on Transportation.
That also has been on a bit of a hiatus, but Jameson actually is vice chair, so he may have the better update. He's got the more internal input.
It's been absorbed by the transportation package
Yeah.
activities. So we'll have more to discuss next meeting.
Strategic planning, do you know, Kelly?
I don't think we've met since the board met last.
Finance Committee, Lawrence. The Real Estate Committee, do we still need that Real Estate Committee? Or are we?
I don't think so. We're in the middle of due diligence, like,
So we just stand on it?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, if everything moves along, we don't need it.
Okay. And the Bylaws Committee, Kristen, I think, is working with the bylaws and kind of doing a first run through, and then the committee will.
Yes, I mean, I was just emailing with Wendy about that, and so, we'll be getting something scheduled in the next couple months.
Sure. And the goal is, the end of the year, Jameson?
Yeah, we just talked about the finance committee briefly.
Sure.
There is a meeting coming on the agenda for that meeting is whether to keep that committee standing. We're coming back with a recommendation to the board. Part of the challenge that we had a few years ago was we didn't have a robust financial report that gets to the board packet every single month. That is changing, so you'll see a financial report in the packet each month. We've scheduled a standing meeting with the treasurer and the finance director to kind of look at those numbers before they go into the packet. So it turns into whether that committee still has a real purpose. There's a need there, and we have to adjust that schedule in the beginning of the year and in the fall because of the budget committee as well. So it kind of skips a beat quite a bit. If we can get the finance numbers top of mind and at each of the budget meetings, or board meetings rather, not having an in-depth report, but just letting you know how we're tracking, I think that kind of takes care of what we're doing in finance committee. So we'll bring that conversation back to Bob.
Thank you.
Can I just make a comment? When I first started on the board, that committee was the contract review committee and morphed into the finance committee. So we're reviewing those contracts through the board now. Right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Jameson, we'll turn it over to you for the CEO report.
All right, well, just 2 topics, and I'll be brief, but we haven't met in a while, so I want to tell you a story. When I was interviewing here, I remember showing up with like 3 minutes to spare before my interview started. And it's because I was on MX and vending machine malfunctioned at Eugene Station, so I had to get a later bus. And then I didn't pull the cord the way it really liked to be pulled, so I ended up down by the roundabouts in Springfield. And I walked back and I made it in time and I told the story about, this is what happens when you ride a bus. Well, today I have another story. I live right off of Crescent, so I decided I was going to get on the 67 and ride the bus here. So I get up and I'm at the bus stop early. I put in the app. I saw the bus was coming in 5 minutes, but I get this text. So I started answering the text. And then I realized that the sprinkler system is on. So I back away from the bus stop and I have my headphones on, listening to my music. Out of my peripheral, I see this big white machine slow down and pull off. I go, oh crap, I missed my bus. LTV stuff. So my first thought was, because I saw the driver kind of tap the brakes, I go, they realized who I am, and now they're going to think they're going to get a pass spot. So I called Mike, and Mike was able to tell the bus driver, that was the CEO's fault. He should have been paying attention. But I want to share that with you that sometimes in this service, we have to educate the customers as well as our operators on what to do. And I fell into that category today.
So how'd you get here?
Yeah, I turned around, I walked back to my house, with my car. Drove on down. Good intent. Yeah, good intent. So fail. So retention. there's not an AIS in the packet on this, but I wanted to talk through that. Over the past 18 months or so, we've been really hiring. And now we want to keep. And we put some things in place to keep our people. One is we look at the engagement surveys. We look at those. You take them with a grain of salt or not, but we look at the information in there. And we made some actions based off that feedback. We have leadership training throughout our levels of the organization. We have, with the goal of being more empathetic and trying to understand what our frontline employees really need to be successful, what our administrative employees need to feel supported. We've also implemented or installed a labor relations position fairly recently. I'm happy to report that Bill Bradley, who you've seen come before you at the union, is in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish with the organization, and he's in that role. And the goal for that role is not to, beat ATU at the bargaining table. I mean, we want to be fair, but the goal really is to bring his insights into, or how we handle best practices, how we've interpreted the contract across multiple units. You'll recall, IT is now under the bargaining unit, facilities is under the bargaining unit. We have the operators and we also have the fleet maintenance. We want to make sure that's being interpreted in a consistent way so our employees are having a good employee experience and we're in alignment with our contract. So we're happy to report that that's been received well. It's been received from well to cautiously optimistic, which I think is fair. Some of the folks covered by the CBA have said, you stole our guy, but from a good standpoint that they know who he is, they know he's not going to change. So we're happy about that. The changes that we made in HR fairly recently are going well. We've had a couple of speed bumps of implementing new things, but the feedback that we're getting generally is I'm getting my forms in correctly, I'm getting responsive information, and I'm getting, it feels better. So we're starting to see some of that. We'll report back on specific metrics there. But just some things about retention. When we retain our employees, it's a cost saving measure. From our operations employees, it costs us over $11,000 to recruit. When you look at the recruiting costs and the training costs. So each time we are able to reduce our attrition rate, we're able to save money. So right now we're at 24%. If we go down to 14%, it'll save us about $360,000 annually. So we're going to be looking at what the target percent is to make sure that we're realizing those savings, but also keeping the people that we've worked so hard to train. The national average on that training is $8,200, so we're about $3,000 above that. The reason ours is so much more is because of the level of training that we provide. We do 9 weeks. We'll take someone who doesn't have a CDL and do 9 weeks of training. So we want to make sure that we're putting safe people out on the road and delivering service in a safe way. However, that also calls into question, is that the most efficient way to do the training to accomplish the same thing? So we don't want to sacrifice the level of safety on the street, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in an efficient way. So we'll be looking at some strategies there as well. Part of the culture shift is driving some of these results. We saw in 25, the attrition rate was 24% overall. This year, it's at 9%. Now, we need to dig in deeper and see what's really driving that change, which is a good direction to be going into. So I don't want to speculate, but I do know that I think some of the recruiting changes that have happened and some of the training with how we work with our people, particularly our newer people, are starting to pay off. We recently implemented a mentorship program, which is pairing new operators with seasoned operators to help them get through that first 2 years, which is critical. We'll be measuring that and making sure that's working as well. We'll report back to you. Long term, we know that the savings compound. So when we get better people on the street to keep those people, then we know that we can focus on how do we continue to help them to thrive in their position. So we'll keep looking at that, but I did want to share that with you. We'll be coming back to you with where we are with the HR initiatives that we put in place with some numbers on response rate. Of course, that'll be reflected in our engagement survey that we'll put out. The success measures for our mentorship program and our professional development. And we've invested in professional development. You're going to see some of that today at the executive level, but we've also invested with our frontline supervisors, which have more of a touch to our frontline employees. So more to come on that, but where we are right now is positive in terms of how we're feeling with the organization. Of course, we'll get a real measurement through the engagement survey to see just what that looks like for our employees. So, any questions? Then you know.
How do we have any idea how our retention rate is compared to our peer organizations?
Yes, but I don't have that in front of me. I have my boiled down bullet points, but yes, we do. We can get that through the American Bus Benchmarking Group, and we also can get that through industry standards.
Off the top, is it comparable?
I think at the 9% we are. I think the 24% we're high.
A little high.
Yeah.
You mentioned leadership training right at the beginning. So is that for upward mobility possibilities?
That's what we want to get to. So ideally, we'd like to get to, in my mind, what I've been working through LTD University, which allows career paths for people to be able to, when we post a job, if they feel confident, they're able to apply for that job. And what that could look like is some job shadowing. Some systems that are a little bigger than us have their own systems where they kind of trade executives for a bit. You might be at Denver RTD, but you might be working at LA Metro for 2 weeks as part of that. We think that we could get to a place where we can do some things internally, and that's where you're seeing the mentorship program come in, the apprenticeship program, which should be going live here in the next year or so. Correct. The next year or so. And then we'll be looking at how we do those career paths. That came up in one of our last town hall meetings when Bill was still in his union position. So we're going to be.
And then my final question, with the outsourcing, and I'm curiously tracking that as we go because that's been beneficial. It sounds, but things could get lost. Like I think we just had the employee picnic, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there this year. Do you have a committee that manages those? Is that the new labor relations person? And I say that because that's so easily a back burner item, and it is one of the mainstays of good retention. We call ours our fund committee.
It is the heartbeat of it.
Right.
So when what's that?
It's a committee? Or
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So that falls under Wendy's vertical, and we have a we have a chief people officer is what we titled it, because you recall we eliminated the director position. So we have a chief people officer who has a strong HR background, manages that piece along with Xenium. Xenium right now is working on like the foundational pieces, making sure our employee handbook is up to date, making sure processes and procedures. And ideally, Heather, we assess this in the next 12 to 18 months. We bring it back in-house because we really want our people to manage our.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. So
Strategic business plan update. So this is just an update for the board. We're on our third cycle of strategic business plans. So we had the first cycle was from 22 to 24. We're currently in 24 to 26. So it's time for us to start revisiting what makes sense now. The timing of it all is very curious, is what I'm going to use, because we have our long range mobility plan that's going to kick off, that looks at countywide. So this is a strategic business plan that really isn't tethered to a longer range vision at this point. So we're going to look at what the time frame should be. It should be a 2-year time frame to kind of bridge that gap and then revisit it again. So that's the first piece. Our current business plan includes several key areas. One is growth with fixed route. I believe the goal is to get to 280,000 revenue miles, so grow service. That has been, challenging in some ways and in others, we had to reduce because operator level. So as we grow our operator levels, we'll scale up, and that's what our operations analysis helped us to identify. We're looking at our internal culture, trying to grow our culture. We talked about that a little bit a few minutes ago. Safety and security is always primary. One of the things that we're doing under that vertical now is looking at onboard camera systems. So that project is underway now to install new systems. Our current system is antiquated, so we need to take care of that. Financial health, public engagement. We just went through an exercise with the communications outreach plan. We recently reconvened that group and got some feedback on how we operationalize that. So you'll hear from Eric Breitenstein in marketing and to talk about that in the next meeting. And then our mobility portfolio, what kind of services we offer. I know, Heather, you have the South Eugene area in your district, and the Route 27, which runs right up our hill through our backyard, which doesn't exist. We hear about that. One of our studies told us that we should probably look at a different kind of mobility kind of system for that. So we're looking at that. But while we do that, we have the downtown circulator, which is set to launch later this year, and also the rural services project, which we'll be going back out to bid for. So we're making some headway there. On August 19th, we're going to reconvene the outcomes group. So last year we brought in stakeholders to talk around 4 different outcome areas. We've done some work in that space to look at what metrics make sense around housing, around access to work, healthcare, and schooling. So we're going to reconvene them and run that by them and build that feedback into the strategic business plan. Then we're going to work to refine that business plan with the organization. It's usually Amy Reichert that gives you this update, and we want to change that so it's not Amy and business intelligence's project. It's an organizational project, and our goal is to make sure that everyone in the organization knows how what they contribute each day contributes to the outcomes of the organization, success outcomes. So we're going to be refining that with the organization, and then we'll develop an internal communications plan after we bring it to the board to make sure that it has your input and your stamp of approval. So once we do that, we'll be communicating that throughout the organization in a very intentional way so that people understand what our goals are and the public understands as well. So more to come on that. Again, we have our first workshop last week, 2 weeks ago.
Last week.
Yeah, last week. I'm on vacation, so it's last week we had our first internal workshop, and we'll be doing more of those soon. So we'll bring all that back to you. But the big thing is to refresh that strategic business. I'll take your questions.
The August 19th, is that a public meeting?
It is not a public meeting because it's you all are welcome to attend. If you have a quorum, then it becomes one. But you're welcome to attend. But this is a group of outside stakeholders that came in last summer, spent 2 days with the organization with the basic question of how does the work we do align work you do, and how can we measure ours in terms of whether we're moving the needle on account.
John's great. Heather?
The group that we met with regarding Route 27, I'm glad you brought them up because I did promise places that they could plug in for input. And it sounds like this is outside stakeholders are mainly and staff, but if there's a space for someone on that little group that we met with last winter, that would be great. I thought of the strategic planning committee, but this might be even more.
So there's a couple ways. When we move in, the biggest way is when we move into our long range mobility plan.
Okay. Yeah.
That will involve an intentional public outreach process. And I think that's the best way to plug in. When on the 19th, this group that is meeting is reconvening from when it's like part 2 of when they convene. So we're just going to be sharing the outcomes and trying to clean those up a little bit based on their feedback. But there'll be plenty of opportunity as we move through the long range plan.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Is that your report? Okay. So we're gonna move on to the consent agenda, which contains the 2 items. Do any board members wish to remove an item for discussion? Great. Hearing none, we'll invite a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Good. So we need a roll call vote. Heather? Aye. Lawrence?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Gino?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Pete?
Aye.
Susan? Three, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. We now move to board action items, and Jameson, if you and your staff can provide a summary of the Vertisa, am I saying that right?
Vertisoft, yes.
Vertisa contract.
So that same app that I actually been paying attention to this morning, this ties directly to that. So a few years ago, we got a, Congressman DeFazio was able to secure some funding for us to put together a multi-modal app. And it was in partnership with LTD, Eugene, and U of O. And that project sat on the vine for quite some time because one, there was an ownership question, but two, there was a push to include paid parking within the app, which just didn't seem like the purpose of the funds. It just was backwards. So what we have in front of you is a proposal to enter into agreement with Vertisoft, which is actually Transit app. Transit app is the app that I've used it for years, and the advantage of Transit app is it updates wherever you go. So you get on an airplane, you land in Chicago, it will update and give you Chicago's information. You land in Paris, it will update and give you Paris, Mexico City, wherever you land. And we have the ability to have that here in Eugene. The other thing it does is it will connect us with different modes. So we can look at bus. We're going to include biking. Bike share will be in this as well. It allows you to take a quick survey, if you would. So when I got to the bus stop today, it realized I was there based on the GPS. And it said, you know, can I ask you a few questions? And I said, yeah. So it asked me if the bus stop was clean. Did I feel safe? When the bus arrived, if I would have paid attention and got on, it would have asked me if it was clean. If it was crowded, right? So we're able to get this information on a line by line, stop by stop basis through this app. We don't have to support it. A lot of the transit agencies have gone years ago, went down the path of creating their own apps, not realizing that you have to support it. When there's a complaint, you have to have someone answer that. They will handle all of that on our behalf, and it will create a more seamless experience for our customers who are using biking or using our bus as well. So that's what's in front of you. $600,000 funded through 2030. We are repurposing some of the grant money towards this as well, so it's fully funded, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions with Dave's help.
I'm sorry, I'm asking something, but
Sure.
what are the capabilities for, it sounds like if it's international, there are multilingual capabilities, but I know that we have a population who has learned to use within Cottage Grove that their language is unwritten, and yet they've learned and we've helped coach them through the apps. And so is this changing those things, and is it fairly easy for people with low literacy levels to utilize?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a stab at it. The app is one of the easier ones to use. It's pretty straightforward from my perspective. All right, so someone who's new to transit, if I show them an app, it's the one I typically will show them. It's intuitive. In terms of the language, Heather, I don't know. I turned to Dave last year.
For sure, we could use Spanish with it. I think it does automatically translate to other languages depending on where you are as well. And if there are training needs, we can certainly build that into our sort of launch plan. So the plan is to launch this, and one of the things Jameson did mention here is the plan is to launch this coinciding with the website, the new website launch. And one of the nice things about using this platform is that it will be the same platform in your hand on your smartphone and on our new website. So same look, feel, use, tools. So we'll have that consistency that all of our providers can expect. Launching October 1st. So we have some time. There is going to be a big marketing push to try to get people to adopt this platform. And so part of that could be, meeting with individuals or certain populations and helping them.
I think that's a great idea, and or meet with the people that help coach them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
other providers.
Yeah, and Eric Bryan said it's not here, but
That's great.
So October 1st is the launch also for the website, or is that happening a little before? Or is it together?
I believe October 1st is the day we're working towards right now.
So, having a software background, I have a couple of questions about the long-term thing. I mean, because first of all, this app is an app that's already exists and we're just getting customized to our location?
Yes, it exists today.
Okay, typically when you create software that your maintenance and your long-term stuff is actually more expensive than the actual creation of the app generally. So we're buying this initially at 600,000, right? So are we paying fees to them over time for maintenance and stuff?
Yes. Yeah, so it's basically a software as a service contract.
Okay. I just want to make sure I know what we're getting into.
Absolutely. We, I made the mistake of trying to own my own app in the past, and I can tell you that's horrible. This will allow us to be able to leverage their ability to not only commingle our different services, but also give us market feedback on how we're doing different lines.
Okay. I actually use the transit app. You turned me on to it actually, and I've been really impressed with that. They use it more than our website or anything else.
I know.
So.
And I was just gonna point out that the not to exceed amount in the AIS is for a 5-year term.
Yeah.
So that's not just the upfront cost, that's the 5-year cost.
Kind of along the lines of what he was saying, and my question is really what happens in 2030? Like what do we anticipate happening then?
I anticipate that this app will be successful. It's been around forever. I think it's going to serve us well. It's functioning now. The big pieces that we'll have is connecting it to our website and also the multimodal. It's tried and true. It's been around for probably used it for 10 years.
Not a question, but a comment. I use a parking app. I love nothing more to be traveling than to have that already pop up. It's really convenient because I don't know where I am half the time. So it's helpful to, have that and you're already having that. So I'm hearing the same kind of verbiage.
Use Park Mobile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere.
Yeah. Same concept. Where you land, it will, if you go to Seattle, it will update everything.
It's so thrilling. And then it's
Thrilling, a parking app is thrilling, that's.
Is it EIG?
Yep.
And so little.
Transfer that.
Cool.
I just.
I just downloaded it.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. You can download an actual vendor right now, but once we, complete the purchase agreement and we launch it, we get a bunch of extra features. It's branded with LTE color scheme, all these other things. And the communication tool is such a big, benefit for us. The surveys, the ability to push messages out to transit app users will be a lot of new functionality that's really beneficial for us.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
I think there's a few, but. Just one, invite
We would, I need to, ask for a motion to adopt resolution 2025-08-0525.
I move to approve adoption of resolution number 2025-08-05-25, authorizing the chief executive officer to enter into a contract with Vertisoft LLC for the purpose of implementing a multimodal trip planning application.
Second,
Second.
moved and seconded, and do we need a roll call vote? Okay. Pete,
Aye.
Michelle,
Yes.
Gino,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
Heather.
Aye.
And Susan. Aye, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Is there any further activity? If not, there's no further business, or we adjourn. Executive, oh, no, this is the general, sorry. Okay, thank you.